managers. And that means that anybody, if you're a manager, if you're in HR, whatever your role, we hope it's something that you'll find that you can utilize here. So in terms of introductions here, let me get onto the right slides. Just introducing myself. Has anyone been on a webinar with me before? I can see a few names that I recognise. Some of you may already know me. Do let me know if you've joined us before. And just to introduce myself to those who haven't, my background is learning and development. I'm the founder and CEO of Actus, or lots of you know all of this, don't you? A few first timers. I'm the founder and CEO of Actus. So we have a complete people performance management software, and we also do lots of learning and development. That's something we're passionate about, supporting people, hopefully with things that are really relevant at the moment. I also host a podcast called the HR Uprising. I realise this is aimed at line managers, but actually we've just concluded a series of podcasts all about virtual line management. So if you look that up, you'd be able to access that, and we'll send you out a link to the playlist which shows all 8 of those episodes at some point. If you're interested in change, I wrote a book and launched that in lockdown all about how to be a change superhero. I'm a mum of 2 and I'm a keen but average netball player. Would love to get a chance to get playing again soon after lockdown, hopefully. Ah, yes, a netball player indeed. You don't know what netball is, I think, Aaliyah. It's a ball. It's a bit like basketball, but you can't bounce and run with the ball. Veronica's saying that my presentation is flicking. Is it flicking for others, or is it just Veronica is the question?
Looks okay to me, Lucinda.
It's okay. Okay, great. Apologies if that's the case. All right, so the key learning points that we're going to cover are, first of all, to cover why well-being needs to remain high on our agenda. Its practicality is really about how to spot concerns and some practical ways of optimizing well-being in your team. Sorry about the dog in the background. And I think we've still got people in the waiting room. I don't know if you can see those, Helen. So let's start off by thinking, what do we mean by good mental health or well-being? So, I mean, I don't know if you've thought about it like that. Do you think about your mental health? I'm not sure if I did prior to lockdown and the experience we've been through recently, which is actually, it's something that we all have, and it's just like physical health. It is something that can fluctuate, but it's something that we can maintain and manage like physical health as well. We can exercise our minds, we can support it, we can do things that make our well-being better, and we can also do things that decrease our well-being. Now, the key is, if we've got good mental health or we feel good, then we're going to make the most of our potential. We're going to be better able to cope with what life throws at us, and we're going to have a fuller part in our relationships, workplace, and sense of purpose. So the key really is about recognizing when something isn't right so that we can do something about it. Now, obviously, this is us aimed at line managers. You've got to start with yourself for anything like this. They say if you get on a plane, you should put your own oxygen mask on first. And that absolutely is something that I would say is really important in terms of our own well-being. But if we're thinking of ourselves or of others, the key is really to recognize as early as possible when something isn't right. If we do that, then we can get support. I share this story that I don't think my sister will mind, but my sister, she's had various mental health issues. She's been on long-term sick on various occasions, and she suffers really with anxiety and a bit of sort of maybe OCD, more obsessional behavior. But she still, she works actively. She plays a normal part in society as most people do. But she's been through counselling and CBT on a number of occasions. And the thing that really helped her longer term after she'd been through a series of it was when the counsellor talked to her about recognising that a mental health issue is a bit like a big black hole. And initially we might walk along, not see it, and just fall into it. And the problem is once you're in it, it's like being at the bottom of a well that you can't climb out of. So the learning is, it's not that you can stop the well being there. We still have black holes, and sometimes we might feel drawn closer to them. But if you can stop yourself from falling right in the bottom and not being able to get out, then that's the key. So with mental health, it is very much about almost insurance. It's about prevention being better than the cure. So bearing that in mind, let's think about pre-COVID stats. So can we remember that time pre-COVID? I was thinking, won't it be interesting if next year we go, oh, that was all last year, or will this linger on for a while? It'll be interesting to see. So in the UK, and I appreciate many of you are outside of the UK, there's no reason to think these statistics would be very different from this. Mixed anxiety and depression is the most common mental disorder, with almost 8% of people meeting the criteria for diagnosis. So that's pre-COVID. I would estimate that it could easily be 10 or 15%, feeling close to that now, particularly some of the circumstances that are going on. Mixed anxiety and depression has been estimated to cause 1/5 of days lost from work. Now, the interesting thing is you are seeing, and you may be experiencing, I don't know if you are experiencing this, guys, as line managers, would you say that you are having fewer people actually go off sick than maybe you would have done previously because people are working remotely? I don't know whether that's something that perhaps, I don't think it necessarily has to be presenteeism. Maybe if you've got a bit of a sniffle, you can work through it. Wow, Bernice is saying by half. So yes, there's less sickness. That doesn't mean, I guess, that people aren't suffering with things, because people feel a pressure to be visible. And of course, if you're working from home, you actually can, if you're poorly, you can have a cold, can't you? And function lightly. So it may not cause a 5th of days lost, but that doesn't mean that we haven't got an issue with well-being our people. And I think the key issue then goes on to things about stress. And they were saying those people reporting stress, 51% said they felt depressed, 61% said they felt anxious. So if people have got depression, anxiety, then that may well link into a long-term stress. And the problem with that is if people do then go off, then they tend to go off for quite a long period of time. It's got too bad. Effectively, they've fallen into that black hole. So we're thinking prevention as much as possible is what we want to do. Now, the problem is that people are fearful about mentioning these things. Maybe they don't feel safe about it. Maybe it is more acceptable now because so many of us are feeling down. It's winter, maybe we can make it more acceptable. But also people have worries about their employment, and certainly in the UK, I know that's massive. I'm sure in other parts of the world, you must be experiencing that. Assuming that everybody I'm talking to, I don't know whether COVID is massively affecting you in the Bahamas, but in other parts of the world, are those same worries? In the UK, lots of people have lost their jobs. There's quite a high risk of redundancies going on, particularly in certain sectors. So you can imagine that there are even greater fears than there were previously. So in Malaysia too, says Aaliyah. And I'm glad to see the other netballer. I think it was Sarah up there. Okay, so what we always try to do here is to try and make this as interactive as possible. So I'm going to get you to cast your mind back to the previous lockdown, the longer lockdown that I think most of the world was involved in. And there's a poll that we've put up here, and we're intrigued to see how you remember, or whether you remember, your mental health being affected. Now, some people said it improved. Some people said it was the same as usual and they're usually healthy. Some people said it was the same as usual and it's less healthy because that's your norm. Some said they fluctuated throughout, but they managed to pick themselves up, and others felt it declined. So this is thinking about the previous lockdown, and then we'll come back and think about where we are right now. So it's actually 160 people on this call, so there's lots of people on here, so I'll give you a chance to respond. Well done, you're right on there. It'd be interesting to see whether the figures have changed compared to when we did it during lockdown, whether we look back differently. Okay, I'm going to count down. We've got 80% have voted. Last few votes, if you want to cast your vote, we'll end the polling and then we'll share results. Okay. Oh, I've got an error. Are you able to share it, Helen?
It should be sharing. I think we
sharing?
probably pressed it at the same time.
Right. Someone tell me in the chat, can you see the share of the poll? Can you see it? So most people have said they've fluctuated throughout, and we've said 42% in this audience. I'll show you what the results were previously. Some say it improved, sometimes it's much the same as healthy, some was less healthy, and sometimes declined. Yeah, the figures are pretty close to what we had before on our poll, but interestingly, there's 20% declined, as was 17% said that they felt it declined. This is interesting for me because again, speaking in the UK where we're going into winter, it's darker, it's more challenging in lots of ways for people. The novelty has worn off. I mean, it was lovely sunshine in our initial one, wasn't it? We had longer days. Almost you could pretend you were on holiday in some sort of resort, even though you had to go to work every day. The circumstances, I think, as COVID draws on this inability to maybe recharge our batteries with social relationships and the activities, our exercise and things that we might have done, our team sports. I think it is quite difficult for people, and we have to be mindful that whereas we might have survived the first one, that some people are really feeling that this second period of time, it's extra wearing. We can't go on doing this for indefinitely. In terms of the results that we had previously, I've got a second set of slides here. It's very similar to what you said, but more people felt that their energy levels were lower than usual. But actually, I think if we combine that result with what you said, lower and that it was less healthy, it's probably very similar. All I would say is I think more of you felt your energy was quite positive. So I don't know if you're remembering it more positively or otherwise. In the chat, how are you finding this period of time? Do you feel that the weather's making a difference to how you feel about things or to your people? What is the impact on you about this second piece? And what do you think the impact is on your team? Yes, so sad, that kind of seasonal affective disorder. I don't know if we don't hear so much about that anymore, but definitely less light, less access to natural light is something that's a real tricky one. Harder with dark mornings and evenings in colder weather. It's harder to get out and actually get that fresh air. The other thing that people have told me that they're noticing, and I think I notice it myself, is that we're not necessarily, I suppose, there's almost like when we started out, I felt like you did have quite a lot of time on our hands, but it's almost like we've now shoved meetings into every waking minute that we might have had previously, and suddenly we're busier than ever. So even though you might have wanted to go for a run at lunchtime, you can't do that because you've got back-to-back Zoom meetings. Do you feel that? So I'm interested in terms of that. Lots of people missing seeing people. It's harder to do those. So we've got to work hard. The reality is, right, we've got to work harder to look after our well-being, and it's just nice to see a handful of people are liking it. Okay, so there's ways there. Those of you who are liking it or feeling it's better, any top tips that are helping? What is it that you're finding that why do you like it? What optimistic inspiration can you share with people that we can share? So the key is, although it is great that we've got developed 3 vaccines are available, there isn't one yet if we then end up with having associated mental health issues. So it absolutely is about prevention. And look at people saying Zoom fatigue. I've been in meetings today. So Clint's saying, if I take the dog out in the AM, get some fresh air before work, sets him up for success. Exercise. Are we talking ourselves into it? People say people feel worse. We're looking for evidence to confirm. Simanda, yeah, good point. Are we actually almost creating a self-fulfilling prophecy? Sort of people who are saying that they have colleagues who leave the house and walk around the block at the beginning of the day and the end of the working day. So it's their commute and it puts them in the work frame of mind. Great idea. Because to be perfectly honest, if we can end up sitting at our desks, can't we, doing just not moving, which doesn't make you feel good? Can you block out time in the middle of the day to have no meetings so it's daylight so you can get outside? Play with the cats, dogs, animals a few times as a small break in that. So if you can't exercise, go to the gym, play sport, get out, wrap up warm, go for long evening walks instead. I mean, are there any challenges that you can do? If you like your own company, it's quite useful. Are there challenges you can do? So I'm doing 3 challenges at the moment, just things I've come on online. So one is a walking challenge in November where you had to do 350,000 steps, which is about 11.5 thousand a day. Doable, but a stretch, because if I sat at my desk all day, I could easily do less than 1,000. So I'm been motivated to do that. So that's made me get up out in the morning because I've got that going on. I'm also doing a squat challenge with somebody as well, someone over in Singapore, a friend of mine who said we've got to build up to doing 250,000 squats a day. So these things, I just thought, actually, that's been quite a good way of just keeping me slightly motivated. And I've got a third one that's gone off out of my head at the moment. Any of you doing any challenges that are helping you? And yeah, if you've got back, so what else can you do if you've got back problems or otherwise? So having little targets or goals, can you agree those with other people, with your friends? That sort of peer pressure that might help you to keep motivated. Now, I will come back to those. There's some great ideas there, and you can obviously read them in your chat yourselves. So now let's focus on our team. So those are tips that you've got, which of course you can share with other people. If we think about your team at the moment, what challenges or concerns do you think might be bothering them at the moment? Being alert to things that might make them feel a little bit less happy or well. And actually, if there's something that I've missed in terms of comments, I looked at it and my brain went blank. I thought, what will make this more relevant for now? It does vary. So do let us know if there's something different that you want to add. So what are the concerns? And I think you can use multiple choice, so you can put more than one. Oh, I like that. So D. Cavill, sorry, I don't know what your first name is, but yes, it doesn't have to be exercise. You're exercising your brain, learning to play chess and competing online. Great idea. Baking, bake off, and doing some Joe Wicks to balance out the cakes, Sarah, maybe. Yeah, using your devices to challenge us against trying to walk past the fridge without opening it. Yeah, that can be tricky. So lots of little 20-minute breaks, absolutely. Well, to be perfectly honest, Giles, there's no way I can do 10,000 steps in one hit. I have to get out more than once. You're absolutely right to be able to do it. Sewing. You're the second person today I've heard of someone who's sewing. They sew in the evening, connecting with others. So if you feel feeling very lonely is helping, or are you saying, Ahmad, that you feel lonely? In which case, so it's what can we do, unless you want to feel lonely, but what can you do to connect with others? How can you make connections remotely? So this is what people are feeling. Okay, that's the concern is what you're saying, Ahmed. So people are feeling lonely. Yes, so the isolation could be kicking in more so for those people who are on their own, who are isolating and missing their friends and family. So let's share the poll and see what people said. We've had 75%. Sorry, has anyone else lost votes to come in? Let's capture them and see what the patterns are that we believe. Do you want to share it for me, Helen, or is it already shared? I can't see this thing. You've got that's shared. Thank you.
Just shared it now.
Thanks. Okay, brilliant. So what have we got here? So this is where my mouse is becoming a bit more of a challenge for me because I have to up and down. So the highest one is, oh, that is interesting. That's a new high. So actually people are concerned about demonstrating productivity or capability remotely. Obviously, there's a big spread of scores. There's others that are very close. Caring responsibilities at short notice, because we've got things now happening, haven't we, with bubbles, kids being sent home from school again, job security. So I'm sure that job security and demonstrating productivity is probably something that they are linked. So, and then if we think about it, if you are nervous about your job security, you might want to therefore demonstrate productivity, and therefore that might also mean that you start demonstrating presenteeism. And that means that people therefore don't leave their desks and they feel more exhausted and they don't get out and do something for their well-being. So you've got something which could be a real cascade, a negative cascade that could happen, that people are anxious and therefore they're trying to do something about it by working harder, but that working longer may actually make them less effective because they're not looking after their well-being. So as line managers, are any of you thinking about what do you think you can do to help? And you've got some lovely ideas coming through already in terms of this. So interestingly, some people are worried about not being able to work remotely because they're finding that they prefer it as well. But there's lots of concerns, I think, about trying to demonstrate productivity, demonstrating job security. We'll grab screenshots of these polls because that's quite an interesting new insight from this group. So let's look at the things that people are doing that they are like. Excuse me, sorry about that. So some gaming that can really help people. So online board and card games, something social with friends, and you can still do it online with friends, really helping, says Arwen. It's a long time. People didn't expect when they went home in March to have to work from their kitchen table or shared space, did they, for as long as they are having to. So that is a challenge. What else can we do? People are nervous about having to travel during the pandemic. So the people who are having to travel, that's really tricky in there. So whereas on the flip side, Andrew says some of people are missing their travel. So interesting to look at these things. What else? People are worrying about losing track of things. So actually being productive maybe there. What I'd say is some of you, if you're able to easily change your name so I can see your first name, otherwise you're coming in as numbers, or I'd say Jones Mal1 said it was worrying about losing track of things, harder to communicate informally. You can change it in your if you look at the participants piece. So yes, these are things. So Veronica said, what can we do to support this? So helping people understand, Veronica says, their SMART goals and an inclusive culture. And I think that's really, really a useful thing to do, is help people understand what needs to be achieved without overloading them, and help them to realize when they've achieved it. So it's, if we measure outputs, then encourage them also to get out and do different things, whether it's hours or get out about exercising. So make it okay for people to do that, but also make sure that you tell them what's expected and tell them that they are being productive. Can we give people more confidence and reinforcement about what they're doing right, and the fact that they don't need to be online 24/7 to be productive? And one good way of doing that is make sure we actually do have things like one-to-ones and check-ins. Make sure we do regular team chats, check in with your team, clear objectives which are measurable and demonstrable, says Luke. That places the focus on outputs, not hours or times of the day. Couldn't put it better, Luke. Absolutely. That's what we keep. Great. So there's some brilliant ideas that we can do. Set real, realistic goals in terms of outputs. And again, that's what Liz was saying there. So have a think. Are you actually doing that? And Julie says, no, and reinforce that. Say, I noticed that you set your goals, and great. Did you actually block yourself out and get out for that walk at lunchtime? Brilliant. Well done. How are you feeling? So we need to reinforce well-being behaviors for people in terms of ensuring that they feel able to do it. The other thing to think about is, one of the skills that we all have, whether we're a line manager or not, just a human being, is that we can't always remove concerns completely, but we can empathize with the pains that people have got. And Stephen Covey's quote is that when you really listen to somebody from their point of view and reflect back to them that understanding, it's like giving them emotional oxygen. I was doing some training this morning just before I came on here, and one lady I really felt for, and she was just saying how much she was struggling because she wasn't able to get out in the day because she's got a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old at home. There's no nursery support at the moment, and she's working full time, and husband has his own business, is out of the house that entire day. And it's kind of like, what do you do in those circumstances? Because unless can you get the kids to both sleep at the same time? How can you get something there? And you think there's not a lot you can do sometimes about people's circumstances, but what you can do is listen, and you can empathize. So maybe that one there, Lynn saying online afternoon tea, have a chat like you would in the kitchen at work. A little bit of just downtime conversation where people feel listened to and understood. And quite often as individuals and line managers, we feel like we should fix the problems, but sometimes we can't fix the problems. So we should take faith in the fact that if we actually listen and empathize, we are in fact helping. I like Luke's come up with another good one here where he's saying he likes to take the lead, but leading by example. And that links nicely into one of my next slides. So he takes his lunch, he goes and exercises, steps away from the desk, and encourages his team to do the same. By leading by example, it helps them understand it's acceptable and okay for them to do. That's a really good one. Great. Okay, Jollis organisation has been very generous, some extra holiday as well. So here's some evidence-based wellbeing tips, and I think many of these you guys have already covered, which is fantastic. We're saying that actually, how do we get people to keep active? And we don't all have to run or walk necessarily, but what can you do that actually gets some endorphins going if you can? Because that definitely, the endorphins do help people. Ideally get outside and get some vitamin D, get some daylight. So that does suggest that we need people to take some time during the working day, whether it's a lunch break or in another time, in order to get on and feel better. Eat well and keep hydrated. You'd think when you're at home it's easier to do that, but actually it's quite easy to sit at your desk, Zoom all day, and not remember to drink something. So keep hydrated, make sure people have got water there. Are they taking interest in diet? Maybe you have a soup. Who can make the healthiest soup competition with people? The flip side of that as well is, I think lots of people talked, didn't they, about the first lockdown being you could end up turning very much to booze or too much caffeine or smoking if that's your vice. But we have to be really careful about these things. Although they can help us short term, one of the things they tend to do is affect our sleep. And actually there's nothing more, I think, debilitating than not having had a good night's sleep, is there? Take real breaks, change of activity and scene. So encourage people to do that, encourage the social contact. And it doesn't have to be Zoom. If you're fed up of Zoom and cameras, can you time? I mean, I quite often do get out, walk the dog and book a conversation with someone from my team at the same time. I'm then in much less of a rush to get through it and I can talk much more relaxed, but also I'm getting some fresh air and some steps, my step competition at the same time. So, think about how you can combine activities and those relationships and those chats. And sometimes you don't think you need the chats, but actually have that chat with your best mate and realize it was really good for you. Be kind to yourself, do things you're good at and enjoy. Encourage others to talk about how they feel. Be prepared to ask for help if you're struggling. It doesn't have to be with work, it could be with friends. And actually, I don't know if this is as bad as it was, but certainly social media, at the start, I think it was a bit too addictive from the point of view of everyone wanted to know what was happening next with regard to the pandemic. But now I think it's just a bit of a time waster if it's there the whole time. And that might mean that you're at your desk longer because you're not getting things done. So just be careful about the impact, and that's classic timeframes. Good old-fashioned phone conversation, says Gail. Totally, that's exactly right. So another one, getting you to think about yourself. So I've got another poll that's going to come up here to get you to think about if your well-being is going down, is declining, what might be the warning signs that you might demonstrate. Well, actually, I don't know. Have we got it set up as a poll, Helen, or not? Let me see. No, I haven't. I do sometimes do this as a poll. Okay, right. I'm going to test you guys. Let's see whether you can manage it. On your screen, there should be a taskbar and it's called Annotations. And this is going to be chaotic, but see if you can find annotations and put a color or a little marker over the signs that you think might be warning signs of your own drop in well-being.
It should be at the top of their screen.
Go to the top of your screen. It's
view options.
View options. Here we go. Some people found it. It's view options.
Then annotate.
And then annotate. And you can have some fun. A bit of chaos. See how many different annotations, colors. You can change the color. We've got stars. I'm not sure what sense we'll make of it with 150 people on it, but let's see what's the big ones that are getting marked up. And while you have fun with the annotations, so we've got some other ideas. So Hannah catches up with her team every day so they can chat about their day, finish with a conversation of what we're having for dinner, gets everyone switched into home mode, and a nice conversation starts the next day too. So that sort of human bit, which is quite nice. They've got a wellbeing calendar where they encourage people to do something small each day, like list something you're proud of, have an online coffee. That's really nice. Okay, that's really nice. Some really nice ideas here to flick through, guys. I knew this would be chaos. Right, okay, I'm thinking that we're saying that most of these are there, but I am seeing maybe a little bit more on the procrastination, maybe being chaotic, or lack of productivity. Shall we take it as that any of these could definitely be part of those, could have an impact here? Essentially, it's any change from the norm. Now, what I've got to do is work out how to get rid of those, unless Helen can do it for me with my minimal mouse.
I should be able to.
Oh, it's gone. It's gone already. Has it gone?
Did that work?
Yeah, thank you. Well done. Because otherwise the annotations stay on the screen if you're not familiar with this, guys. So we'd have messy for the rest of the slides. Oh, here we go. We've got more people on there again. Okay, so basically it's any change from the norm. There's no substitute for knowing our people. And that's what we need to be alert to, because actually, whereas one person might procrastinate or be chaotic, another person might be highly organized and micro focused on stuff. And so it's really as realizing what the difference is, and knowing the people that we work with to recognize what that difference is. So what I have got is a different one here. Oh no, yes, okay, sorry, forgive me guys, because I'm so this was the one I was referring to actually. Does that mean we have got this one, Helen?
Yes, I didn't realise you.
I didn't either. I was duplicating myself, and I found the poll now. Okay, so guys, so this is the one for you. You've had fun with the annotations. What would be the most visible sign of stress for you? Let's do it as a poll as well, so that will make it much easier to tell what everybody's thinking. Is it about lack of productivity, working ridiculous hours, getting aches and pains? Often they're not even, sometimes they're displacement, so it might be headaches or things like that, irritable or emotional, silly mistakes, withdrawing, or something else. That's it. Well done. 69%, over 100 and 110 voted. A few more minutes, any more for any more? Nearly up to 80%. Krishna wants to annotate instead. Okay, let's see what we've got then. Let's go for the poll. What have we got? So the number one we've got coming through is, sorry, I don't want to do that, being irritable or emotional. So that is the one that more of us will. So if you see someone being a little bit more irritable, that's one of the most common ones. People not being productive or focusing or working long hours, they're quite high withdrawing. So exactly as we were saying, it really does depend on the individual in terms of what it is. So the key is knowing who they are and what their natural style might be. So what tips have we got for us as line managers to be able to encourage well-being? First one I say is be available, and that is be available without sabotaging your own time. So one of the best ways of doing it, I know some of you have already said this, is about being available in terms of when your one-to-ones are. So if people know that they can get hold of you, they've got one-to-one scheduled, or they know they can Skype you or message you on Teams, whatever it might be. It's also, if you can be courageous, like the point earlier, I think it was Luke that said he'll lead by example in terms of going out and about. If you can be open and share any personal struggles or challenges, I don't know, somebody's said, let me see, I saw Michelle says that her sleep goes skewed. So if someone said, actually, my problem for me is I can't sleep well in these circumstances, then sharing that with other people that you have that problem is something that's useful for people. In terms of listening to others, which I spoke to about earlier, is actually ask how people feel and listen to the answer, which is really key. Sorry about my dogs in the background, someone's just rung the doorbell. So really listen to the answer is key, so that there's no point in asking the question if we're not interested. So that does mean we need to do it when we feel that they can actually, when you've got time to listen, that's the key. We need to demonstrate that we trust people, which means that we trust them to deliver against these clear goals with realistic timescales. So that's one of the ways in which hopefully they then don't need to demonstrate presenteeism. They don't need to work silly hours. Just tell them that they've got clear goals with realistic timescales that they can meet. When they're doing that, recognize that achievement, recognize the fact that they are taking some time out, that they work the right hours, recognize almost the working patterns, if they're positive, reinforce positive behaviors that are going to support well-being, take an interest in those things with people. If someone isn't performing, then what is the issue? How are they feeling? And of course, just go in with that people thing first, because it's quite likely that the circumstances that are outside their control or your control that may be causing it. If you've got somebody, as say, who's working in a shared environment, the kids are at home, that could really make a difference in terms of these circumstances, and many people can't influence those at the moment. Don't encourage presenteeism, measure outputs, encourage team working and social outputs within reason, without forcing people who actually quite like a bit of their own time. Maybe you can do things like online chess and that sort of thing, which is a really nice idea that's a little bit less in your face. So it doesn't have to be, because I mean, we've had it with our team that the team is divided into the people who want the social coffees and the ones who'd really rather not. So one person's social is another person's pressure. So it's making sure that we're aware of those. So I think it's about taking the lead from others. So asking them to take the lead in what their outputs they'd like them to be and the timescales that they want to work to. So then you can hold them accountable against those. And really, really be overt, give permission, if not direct instruction, for people to stop and take a break when needed, to get out, ideally during daylight, to block time out in their calendar, to look after themselves, because that is probably the best way in which you can stop people from dropping in that black hole. Let them know, I don't want you falling into the black hole. We all need to go and have some time down to be productive. Okay, and then moving on to how we can maybe do this as leaders. So many of you will be in leadership roles in your organizations. How can we promote it more in terms of leading by example as leadership teams? If you're in maybe an HR role where you can influence the organization. Well, one thing is to ask other leaders to be open about their mental health if they've had challenges, to make it acceptable to talk about these things. where possible, create certainty about change. We can't always be certain, but you can tell people when decisions are being made, or you can say that what we know is that there's no plans to make changes until the end of February. So think about where you can create certainty. Can you put in place listening mechanisms like pulse surveys about people's well-being if you haven't already done them? Can you encourage social interaction and teamwork, not necessarily prescribed? If you have a team meeting, I mean, actually, a number of you have already said you do this, have rolling agenda items, maybe about how we feel, what we're having for dinner, what did we do last night, what we're doing the weekend. So you've got this social piece that might not have been quite so necessary in the workplace or just happened more naturally. Lead by example, model good behaviors, encourage a culture where outputs are more important than hours, maybe create some competition or fun about well-being activities, e.g. step count. Have you got a safe escalation route outside the line manager, so mental health first aiders, etc. And you're here, educate other managers. If you've got managers reporting into you, or you've got colleagues, educate others to think about this. So that's the main content that I just wanted to share with you. Let me know in the chat what you're going to do, and obviously have a good flick through. Where possible, we'll send some of this content out. There's an awful lot here, so if there's any top tips we can find, we'll send out. It wasn't this group today, but yeah, some companies have an hour between 1 and 2 where meetings are discouraged, so everyone take a break. Only exceptional meetings are allowed. I was in a meeting this morning with a team that said that they actually try to have a day where they don't book meetings at all and you can just get stuff done. Got tips on meditation. They've got a meditation time where people do it and set a meditation session. So interesting, lots going on in Sarah Alderton's organisation. I'm very proud. Thank you for sharing those ideas. That's really, really helpful. So let us know what you're going to do. It must be one thing that you can do personally or for your team that you're going to do. Yes, I liked the wellbeing calendar idea, Julie. What was that? That one was the one where we went and you put an idea of what you were going to do for your own wellbeing or someone else's wellbeing in the calendar, wasn't it? Which is great. So while you pop those in, I will just finish off. We've got lots of wellbeing resources. In fact, my colleague Helen, who's been really helpful in the background, thank you, Helen, for this. She's put together a collation of wellbeing resources. We'll send that out to you, which has got all these links on it, infographics and things that you can use, you could share within your organisation, which would be nice there. So we've got Wellbeing Wednesday message from the top, says Meg, for everyone to take some time out in the working day, and she tells us what she's going to do. Brilliant, leading by example. Love it. Oh, Wellbeing Advent Calendar. Great stuff. Oh, that's a good idea. It's just about time to do that. Meg, if you got it off a link, or if there's anything you can share about that, I don't know whether you invented it yourselves or if it's something that you can share. Let us know if there is. Kit Kat Club, says Chris. Recognizing people who take a break. Yeah, Chantal, so your team's back in the office, they probably want some work from home time as well. So, because actually there's a pressure suddenly going in every day. Brilliant. Oh, thank you, Helen. So Helen's popped the Wellbeing Links flyer into the chat so you can grab it straight away. And there's also a follow-up email that will just send information out with you. Oh, you created it, Maggie. Well, obviously check if you're willing to share. That sounds great. I'll find you on social media and have a look for it. But what a brilliant idea. Okay, just finishing off, if you found this of interest, or if you know there's other people who want support, at Actus, I mentioned I was on a training course this morning. We've been running a series of training programs. We've got a virtual manager program, which is a 4-module program, which is all about supporting hybrid management. So if you've got a hybrid team, partially in the office, partially remote, or a fully remote team, it's all about manager 101 skills. We're fully booked for this year, but we are taking bookings for January. So the links will be available. How to be a change superhero, I run and wrote that one myself. That's probably more for people in maybe HR roles, or if you are someone managing change. And our newest one is Accelerate Exec. This came out because we found that a number of people, that might be yourselves, have got new starters that have joined, and it could be their first role, or maybe they're a grad starter, and historically they'd have gone on a graduate training program, but actually there hasn't been something to manage, and not every company's got enough grads to put them on it. So this is really aimed at young execs, giving them the foundation skills to thrive and perform in a virtual business world, because there's a whole heap of things that you don't learn by not being in office that we take for granted, those of us who've been there a long time. So any of those, if you want to know more about those, we'll send you links to them and you can check them out on our website. There will be more webinars coming up. The next webinar imminent is, I've just got one before Christmas, and then there'll be a whole new array of them coming. So the next one's about mentoring, and Laura, I can see you're here, so I'm going to take some of our findings on that, so you'll know all about that. And just before people go, I'm just going to put the last poll up. We'd love to know what you would find of interest for future topics. So just a little bit of feedback. Please tell us how useful you found this, and also how interested you would be in other topics, because this will help us complete and just make a relevant program for next year. So if you don't mind filling out that final poll, I'd be very, very grateful. And then obviously just get in touch, link in with me, let messages, ask any questions if you want. We will send the slides out to you. We always send the slides out so you can use them if you want. And we'll keep an eye on the chat. So if you can just give us a final feedback on the poll, and then feel free to disappear off for your rest of your afternoons. Yes, Christina says, very nicely put, Christina. Thank you for all the ideas. Lovely sharing. Really nice that there's so much collaboration here. I like that. So D Jones, they're doing a business-wide carol concert linked to the Alzheimer's Society initiative. That's great. Yeah, we're all going to be nicking Meg's Wellbeing calendar. We'd love to know more about that. Veronica, you're very welcome. Really lovely to have you. Thank you for joining. Great. So keep voting. Anyone who's still here, if you don't mind, just drop into a vote. I'm sorry, I know there's 3 questions. It's a bit hard to think of everything, isn't it? And hey, I'm going to be the first to say happy Christmas, because I dare say I won't speak to some of you again, but hopefully speak to some of you in the new year. Oh, we're nearly getting to that stage. Putting the Christmas lights up this weekend, so I'm sure I can say it. Fantastic. Thank you so much for everyone voting there. It's really, really generous of you to share that, and we'll aim to take into account the ideas you've had. And if there's any ideas we've missed, let us know. Clint's put his contact details. You can capture Clint as well if you want to. There's good details there. Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Oh, from Jakarta. I didn't realize you were there. That's fantastic. So lovely to have people from all over the world. It's amazing.